off today's look, we're actually going to start with the eyes, or I should say eye singular because we're only doing one of them. I'm just using a brown shade in the transition area, just really buffing this in. The eyes are very simple. I'm then doing a eyeliner today, a nice fierce winged liner. I thought I'd make this ugly zombie a little bit prettier. So I'm just using an Essence pen. This is an eyeliner pen, super easy to do, and just creating a nice wing. Again, this isn't the focus of the look, so don't worry if it's not perfect. I then wanted to go in on top of that brown shade with just a little bit darker, and by a little bit I mean a lot. I went in with a black eyeshadow and just buffed this a little bit more in the crease, just going from inner to outer corner to blend it in just a little bit more, and that's it really for the eyes. I added some lashes and that's about it. It's quite the difference, one eye with makeup and lashes and one without. This next part I didn't go too in detail because I didn't want to be the focal point of the zombie. I just wanted to do some type of look on the mouth. So what I'm trying to do here is give the illusion that there is spaces in between my mouth where you can see my teeth underneath. I just used a water activated paint to create the actual teeth themselves, and I'm just shading in the areas around where the skin would be pulling up. So I'm using just eyeshadows. I'm using a brown, and then in the darker areas where I want it to look more in depth, I used a black or darker. Now I'm going into the eye. This is pretty much probably the easiest part because there's no pattern to it. You're just making it look nasty. I ended up using the Ben Nye Bruise and Abrasion wheel just to create these dark shades in the under eye area. The great thing about a zombie is that it does not have to be perfect at all because she's just supposed to be scary and gory. So I'm just taking that same Bruise and Abrasion wheel and just creating some veins all across my face. I also want to deepen out those hollows of my cheekbones, again using the same kit. You can use eyeshadows if you prefer. I just wanted something that was cream based. It just blended a little bit better on the skin. I did want to put a little bit on the other eye, although this is the eye that's going to be covered, so I just used some red from the same palette, but you do not even have to do this eye. I just wanted to make it kind of cohesive with those veins on that side as well. Now we're going to move to the chest piece. I'm still using that same Bruise and Abrasion wheel and just really hollowing out the areas which would normally be there. You can kind of see I'm popping out my chest to kind of make it more hollow. That'll help you really figure out the shapes. Now onto the wound. This is a pretty common technique for special effects. What I'm doing is placing down a layer of latex and then adding some toilet paper. You could also use tissue paper, adding another layer of latex, adding another layer of toilet paper. You really just continue this process until you get it to the thickness that you want. If you are using toilet paper, I will say try and get the really cheap kind that doesn't have the designs because you really don't want, some flowers or things in your wound. So I'm really just adding more and more until I get the desired look that I want. I'm just using a sponge, a cosmetic sponge. You will be throwing this away, so make sure you're using something to apply the latex that is disposable. It does need to dry before we do anything to it, so once you get all the layers on, however many you want, I think I did about 5 or 6 layers, you want to let it dry and move on to the other sides, other steps. So here you can see I'm just continuing with deepening those hollows of my bones. I'm still using that Bruise and Abrasion wheel. It's such a great product. So I'm just using that with an eyeshadow brush to deepen all of these shadows and just create more dimension on the chest. I didn't want it to be too extravagant because I didn't want to take away from the wound itself. So you're doing all these steps, especially while that latex is fully dry. Once it is dry, which should take about 10 minutes, or depending how many layers you did, you want to be really careful and create a slice in it because you're going to start to pull on it and make it look as though the skin is coming off. You don't want to pull so hard that it pulls it off completely because you want it to look as though it is actual skin. So you can see I'm just focusing the hole just in the center. I'm now just using eyeshadow in the same Bruise and Abrasion wheel from Ben Nye to just create some more dimension in it. You can put this red here. This is really optional because you're going to be covering it with lots of blood, but I did want it in case any of that dried up, and I also wanted to make it look irritated around the wound. So I'm just covering that as well with some dimension and some eyeshadow. You could add foundation to the latex itself just so it matches a little bit better, but I put so much blood and gore on it that you could hardly even tell that it was latex. So next I'm going in with some blood. This is from Mehron. You can get any kind of blood at the drugstore, Halloween store, and then you're going to go and just put all that blood on the inside. One thing that did not show here was that Once I moved on to the next steps, I actually went in and put some cotton balls in with latex inside the wound, and that really brought it to the next level. Unfortunately, my camera cut out, so I didn't get to see it, but that is what really brings it to the next level. So all you would do is just take a cotton ball, put some latex on it, and put it in the middle of the wound and cover it with more blood. Now I'm just adding some more of those veins, same ones that we did in the face. Again, just want to make it as nasty as possible. Add them wherever you want. If they're too strong, you can always just buff it out with your finger. Although I already had that zombified t-shirt, I wanted to paint one on instead and just show you how easy it could be. I'm using just a white water activated paint. This is some Graftobian, and I'm just layering it over and over because sometimes white can be really hard and not look super opaque. So what you'll do is you'll put down a layer, let it dry, and then add another layer. You can already start to see the difference between the left side and the right side, how opaque the left side looks compared to how streaky and not opaque the right side looks. So you'll just continue adding more and more color until you get to the desired opaqueness, if that's a word, that you like. One other tip is to really utilize your brush strokes of where you want certain pieces of the shirt to go later. For example, you can see the collar right there. I kind of focus all my brush strokes in certain ways just so I can somewhat see the difference of where they're going to be and where I'm going to place the color later, but it's not essential. So now I'm going to go in just with a Q-tip and just hollow out where I'm going to be putting the lines. I do this because sometimes when you add so much color over another, it'll turn to a different color. So for example, if I did red over the white, it might turn a little pinkish, and I wanted the red to be a little bit more opaque. So I'm just using a red water activated paint. This is from Mehron, to fill in where I want the color of the shirt to be. I also wanted to add the little crosses just to the collars. This one on this side you don't have to do much to because the wound really is going to be the focal point, but you also want to put red wherever you want other lines to be. I obviously am not wearing this out because I'm only doing the chest piece, so I did them on the arms as well. Next, I'm just taking a brown eyeshadow and just really making it look as though the shirt is coming off of the skin, just to try and give it that more realistic look. I'm also giving some shading underneath the collar so it looks as though the collar is above it and a little bit more realistic. So I'm just going around the edges doing that with the brown. Now I'm adding some black, again just making this look more realistic and giving it some dimension. So I really go back and forth between the brown and the black and just buff it out with an eyeshadow brush. And I'll let you just watch and see how I shade the rest. You can now see in the clip where I actually added that cotton in between where it makes it look as though there's something really coming out. I'm actually adding a little bit more blood inside just because some of it actually kind of dissipates. And now I'm just using gauze to create the eye look. I did a little bit on the lips. I love this lipstick regularly. I always call it a dead person lip, but it's from Melt Cosmetics in the shade Sext. And I just added some shadows to the lips to make them look a little bit more dead and some blood to the cheek to look a little bit more dead. I then added some shading underneath the lips just to continue with that deadish look, and then I moved to the eye. I'm really just taking a sponge here and just patting on the blood in layers. You want to be careful because depending on how many layers you did for the gauze, you don't want it to go through into your eye. So my eye is actually closed underneath until it's dried. So just be really careful with this because you don't want to get the blood in your eye. And that, my friends, is the final look. So I hope that you love how it came out. I had so much fun creating it. So if you did, feel free to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you guys in my next Halloween video. Bye, everybody.